First Contact's price. The Arcadian Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their crystalline ships casting prismatic reflections across Earth's atmosphere. Supreme Commander Ixal watched the blue planet through all 8 of his sensory membranes, his neural pathways tingling with anticipated victory. This primitive world, despite its harsh conditions, would make an excellent addition to the Empire's resource networks. Curious, murmured Science Director Ven, her translucent form shifting colors as she analyzed the sensor data. Their civilization readings are barely a Class 3, yet they've established orbital stations and lunar outposts. The energy signatures are inefficient. Ixal dismissed her concerns with a gesture of his primary appendage. They're using chemical rockets and nuclear fission. Primitive technology for a primitive species. The fact they've survived on such a hostile world is remarkable, but ultimately irrelevant. Supreme Commander, interrupted Combat Coordinator Zex, their defensive grid is activating. They're using projectile weapons and chemical explosives. Laughter rippled through the command center, a harmonious sound that made the crystal walls of the ship resonate. These humans still relied on kinetic weapons. The Arcadian Empire had transcended such crude methods millennia ago, developing energy shields that could deflect anything with mass. Launch the first wave, Ixal ordered. Standard protocol for pre-FTL civilizations. Show them our superiority. Accept their surrender. Begin integration. The first wave of Arcadian ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, their energy shields glowing with confident power. Humanity's primitive missiles and railguns would never penetrate their defenses. Ixal watched with satisfaction as the humans' weapons bounced harmlessly off their shields. Then everything changed. Supreme Commander, Zex's voice carried an unfamiliar tone. Was that fear? The humans are using some kind of dispersal weapon. They're throwing particles of matter at our shields. Irrelevant. Ixal began, but stopped as the tactical display showed something impossible. The humans were launching clouds of microscopic particles, dust, metal shavings, even water droplets, in carefully calculated patterns. Where these particle clouds hit the Arcadian shields, they created interference patterns, disrupting the energy field's harmonic resonance. Impossible, whispered Science Director Ven. They couldn't possibly understand the quantum mechanics behind our shield technology. These are just primitive kinetic attacks. They don't need to understand it, came a new voice. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen of Earth's United Defense Force was broadcasting on all frequencies. We just needed to observe how your shields behaved and adapt. That's what we do best. Ixal watched in horror as human ships, crude, angular things of metal and ceramics, burst through the gaps in his fleet's formations. They were using the gravity of their own moon to slingshot missiles at velocities that shouldn't have been possible with chemical propulsion alone. Fall back to high orbit, he commanded, but it was too late. The humans had learned from the first exchanges. They weren't trying to overwhelm the Arcadian shields with force. They were using precision. Tiny projectiles fired at exact angles, creating cascading resonance failures that rippled through the fleet's defensive systems. How? Demanded Ixal as another cruiser's shields failed. How are they adapting so quickly? Your mistake. Chen's voice came again. Was thinking that because we haven't mastered your technology, we couldn't understand its weaknesses. Earth isn't just a death world because of its gravity or atmosphere. It's a death world because everything here is trying to kill you, all the time. We evolved solving problems like this. The tactical displays showed human ships launching what appeared to be clouds of metallic dust, carefully charged to create electromagnetic pulses that played havoc with Arcadian sensors. Their primitive nuclear weapons weren't being used as simple explosives. They were being detonated in patterns that created interlocking fields of radiation, herding the Arcadian ships into killing zones. Supreme Commander, Ven's voice was barely a whisper. I'm detecting thousands of small objects approaching from multiple vectors. More weapons? No, they appear to be satellites. primitive communication devices. But there, she paused, her color shifting to deep indigo with realization. They're sacrificing their own orbital infrastructure, the debris patterns. They're creating a web. They're using their own destroyed technology as a weapon. No, they appear to be satellites, primitive communication devices. But there, she paused, her color shifting to deep indigo with realization. They're sacrificing their own orbital infrastructure, the debris patterns. They're creating a web. They're using their own destroyed technology as a weapon. Ixal watched as humanity turned space itself into a weapon. Their savage understanding of orbital mechanics allowed them to transform debris into deadly projectiles, creating a constantly shifting battlefield that their more maneuverable ships could navigate, but the larger Arcadian vessels could not. This is humanity's formal response to your invasion. Chen broadcast. We reject your offer of integration. We've learned enough from this exchange to know we don't need your technology. What we need is for you to leave, now, and spread the word. Earth is not a prize to be claimed. It's not a resource to be harvested. It's the forge that created us, and we are its children. As Ixal gave the retreat order, watching his mighty fleet limp away from this supposedly primitive world, he finally understood. The humans hadn't survived on a Deathworld despite their primitive technology. They had survived because of it. Every piece of their civilization had been built to overcome the brutal challenges of their homeworld. They didn't need to understand the quantum principles behind Arcadian technology because they had mastered something far more fundamental, the art of survival itself. Send word to the Imperial Council, he commanded as the fleet retreated. Reclassify Earth. It's not just a death world. It's the homeworld of a species that turned death itself into a tool of evolution. And they're no longer confined to their planet. As the Arcadian fleet vanished into hyperspace, humanity began the process of rebuilding their orbital infrastructure. But they weren't just replacing what was lost. They were adapting, improving, incorporating the lessons learned from this first contact. The next visitors from the stars would find an even more formidable opponent. Earth had proven itself not just as a cradle of life, but as the birthplace of a species that could turn any challenge, any disadvantage, into an opportunity for advancement. The galaxy would never be the same. The breaking point. The Arcadian High Council chamber was in chaos. Crystalline beings shifted colors rapidly, their agitation visible in the prismatic waves rippling through their forms. The defeat at Earth had shattered centuries of assumed superiority, and now the unthinkable had happened. Other species were beginning to question the Empire's authority. The humans must be contained, Grand Counselor Nexus declared, his crystalline form pulsing with dark reds and violets. They've already begun sharing their primitive but effective tactics with other resistance movements. 3 colonial worlds have successfully repelled our integration fleets using modified versions of Earth's particle dispersion technology. Science Director Ven, newly promoted after her insights during the Earth campaign, moved to the center of the chamber. With respect, Grand Counselor, I believe containment is impossible. We've analyzed their information networks. They're chaotic, redundant, and decentralized. They call it the Internet, and it's a perfect reflection of their evolutionary approach. The holographic displays showed the spread of human influence, not through military might or advanced technology, but through information, ideas, tactics. The very primitiveness of their solutions made them accessible to species that had never been able to match Arcadian technology. Then we must strike now, Supreme General Cax thundered, his martial form blazing with aggressive energies, before they can fully reverse engineer our technology. We lost the first engagement through overconfidence. This time, we'll commit the full might of the Imperial fleet. The chamber erupted in agreement, but Ven's colors shifted to the deep blue of warning. General, I must object. The humans have had 3 months to prepare. They're not the same civilization we first encountered. Show us, Nexus commanded. Ven activated a series of intelligence reports. They've taken our shield disruption technology and improved it. Instead of elegant energy matrices, they're using swarms of microsatellites that create overlapping fields of gravitational distortion. Crude, but impossible to neutralize without destroying thousands of independent units. The displays showed more innovations. Humans had adapted their primitive nuclear weapons into what they called quantum disruptors. Devices that didn't try to overpower Arcadian shields, but instead created localized anomalies in spacetime itself. Their orbital defense platforms now launched clouds of self-replicating nanomachines that could survive in space and attach themselves to enemy ships, not to destroy them, but to gradually alter their quantum signatures. Most concerning, Venn continued, is their approach to faster-than-light travel. Instead of pursuing our quantum tunnel technology, they've developed something they call bubble drive. It creates a pocket of normal space around their ships while distorting the space-time around it. Primitive and energy-intensive, but it means our quantum interdiction fields are useless against them. How? Demanded Cax. How are they advancing so quickly? Because they're not trying to understand the universe the way we do, came a new voice. The council chamber turned as one to see a human figure materializing in their midst, a hologram, but one that somehow penetrated their most secure communications protocols. Admiral Sarah Chen, her hologram standing with the same predatory confidence she'd shown during the Earth battle, addressed the council directly. You spend centuries perfecting a technology, making it more elegant, more efficient. We grab whatever works and immediately start thinking about how to break it. This is an outrage, Cax began, but Chen continued as if he hadn't spoken. Right now, your analysts are probably trying to figure out how I'm broadcasting this message. You're looking for quantum entanglement signatures, searching for hidden transmitters. Want to know the truth? We figured out your crystalline architecture is sensitive to certain sound frequencies. This whole transmission is being carried through your own chamber's resonance patterns. Primitive. Absolutely. Effective. Well, the council chamber's security systems began to flicker and fail as the vibrations from Chen's voice created cascading disruptions in their crystalline technology. It wasn't an elegant hack. It was the equivalent of shattering a window with the right audio frequency, scaled up to affect quantum computing systems. Here's the reality, Chen continued. You're planning a massive assault on Earth. Don't. Not because we're afraid of you, but because we don't want to humiliate you again. Humanity is leaving Earth's cradle, and we're doing it our way. We don't want your empire. We don't want your technology. We just want you to understand one simple truth. The galaxy is big enough for both of us, but only if you accept that your way isn't the only way. You would dare dictate terms to the Empire? Nexus demanded, even as his form rippled with uncertainty. No, Chen replied. We're offering you a choice. Evolution doesn't just reward the strongest or the most advanced. It rewards those who can adapt. Right now, you need to decide. Will you adapt or will you become extinct? Because if you launch your fleet against Earth, we won't just defeat it. We'll take it apart piece by piece and learn from every fragment. And then we'll show everyone else in the galaxy how we did it. The hologram flickered out, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The mighty Arcadian Empire, masters of quantum engineering and energy manipulation, had just been infiltrated using principles of basic physics that any human child could understand. Options? Nexus finally asked, his color a troubled shade of deep purple. Venn's response was immediate. We adapt. The humans aren't just surviving on a Deathworld anymore. They're turning the entire galaxy into their kind of survival challenge. And they're teaching others to do the same. The Empire has never bowed to primitives. Cax protested. No, Venn agreed. But perhaps that's why we stopped evolving. Perhaps that's what the humans are really teaching us, that there's no such thing as primitive technology, only primitive thinking. As the council debated, Earth's influence continued to spread. Humanity had taken their first steps into the galactic community not as conquerors or supplicants, but as teachers. They were showing other species that survival didn't depend on achieving perfection. It depended on never stopping to adapt, to improvise, to overcome. The age of elegant technology was ending. The age of human innovation had begun. Counter-Strike. The Arcadian Empire had made a fatal mistake. Instead of accepting humanity's offer of coexistence, they had chosen subterfuge. While their council preached adaptation and peace, their Black Ops divisions had been secretly developing weapons specifically designed to target human physiology. They thought they had found our weakness, our reliance on specific environmental conditions, our need for oxygen, our vulnerability to certain frequencies of radiation. They were wrong. Deep within Ganymede Station, Dr. Marcus Wong studied the bioweapon sample that had been intercepted en route to Earth. The Arcadians had engineered it to target human respiratory systems, apparently unaware that humanity had been preparing for biological warfare since before we discovered fire. Fascinating, he muttered, adjusting his microscope. They designed it to be perfect, and that's exactly why it'll fail. Behind him, Admiral Chen watched with arms crossed, her expression grim. The Arcadians' betrayal hadn't surprised her, but it had disappointed her. Explain, she commanded. They created a virus that specifically targets human lung tissue, Wong said, not looking up from his work. Perfect protein bonds, perfect infiltration mechanism, perfect replication rate. But they don't understand how evolution works. On Earth, perfection is death. Anything too specialized, too perfect, eventually gets out-evolved. He straightened up, finally turning to face Chen. We've already developed a counter. Not by creating something more perfect, but by introducing controlled imperfection. Chaos theory applied to viral genetics. The same principles that let us survive on Earth are going to protect us in space. Across the solar system, humanity's response to the Arcadian betrayal was taking shape. But it wasn't the response the Empire had expected. Instead of launching a direct counterattack, humans had begun what they called Project Darwin, a comprehensive reimagining of space warfare based on Earth's evolutionary principles. In the asteroid belt, mining ships that had once extracted precious metals were now cultivating specialized bacteria that could eat through crystalline technology. On Mars, the terraforming projects had been modified to create atmospheric conditions that would interfere with Arcadian sensors. Even Earth's oceans were being used to test new forms of quantum camouflage based on cephalopod chromatophores. They still think we're fighting the last war, Chen observed, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. The Arcadian Empire was fortifying its borders with energy shields and quantum barriers, preparing for another human assault using particle dispersion tactics. They didn't understand that humanity had already moved on. Status of the swarm, she asked her AI assistant, GAIA. The first generation has successfully replicated, GAIA reported. Current population, 10 million units and growing exponentially. They're evolving exactly as Dr. Wong predicted. The swarm was humanity's answer to the Arcadian bioweapon, but not in the way anyone would have expected. Instead of a counter-virus, humans had created artificial cells that existed in the space between conventional matter and quantum states. They weren't meant to attack or destroy. They were meant to adapt and transform. In her office aboard Ganymede Station, Chen received a priority message from the front lines. The first wave of the swarm had made contact with an Arcadian border fleet. The crystalline ships had detected the approach and raised their shields, expecting another crude human assault. Instead, the swarm had simply existed. Billions of quantum organic hybrid cells, each one continuously mutating and evolving, creating patterns of possibility that played havoc with the Arcadians' perfectly ordered systems. Their ships weren't being destroyed. They were being changed, one quantum fluctuation at a time. Send the message, Chen ordered. Across Arcadian space, on every quantum frequency and crystal resonance, humanity's response played out. You tried to use our biology against us, thinking our adaptation to Earth was a weakness. But that adaptation isn't just in our bodies. It's in everything we create. You engineered a perfect weapon. We responded by engineering imperfection itself. The reports began flooding in. Arcadian ships were experiencing impossible mutations in their crystalline structures. Their quantum computers were generating solutions that shouldn't exist. Their perfect technology was being forced to do something it had never been designed for: evolve. They're requesting emergency talks, JIA announced. Chen smiled grimly. Tell them we'll meet on Europa. Let them see what we've done with the ice tunnels there. The Europa complex was humanity's latest achievement. A vast network of tunnels and chambers carved into the moon's ice, designed to mimic the pressure and temperature variations of Earth's deep oceans. Here, humans were creating new forms of life that could exist in the space between states of matter. As the Arcadian delegation arrived, their crystalline forms reflecting the bioluminescent algae that lined the tunnels, Chen knew they were finally beginning to understand. Humanity hadn't survived on Earth by being the strongest or the most advanced. We had survived by embracing change itself as a way of life. Welcome to Europa, she greeted them. We thought you might appreciate seeing what happens when you combine your quantum engineering with our evolutionary principles. Every organism you see here is both alive and not alive, both matter and energy, constantly adapting to exist in states your science says are impossible. The lead Arcadian delegate, their form shifting through patterns of deep indigo and violet, spoke with newfound humility. We believed we could predict your response based on your previous tactics. We were wrong. That's the thing about evolution, Chen replied. The only predictable thing is change itself. Now, shall we discuss what adaptation looks like on a galactic scale? As negotiations began, humanity's swarm continued to spread, not as a weapon but as a catalyst. The perfect crystalline order of Arcadian space was being transformed into something new, not chaos, but a dynamic balance between order and change, perfection and adaptation, technology and evolution. The galaxy was evolving, and humanity, the upstart species from a hostile world, was showing the way. Not through conquest or technological superiority, but through our fundamental understanding of life's most basic principle. Survive, adapt, overcome. The Void Makers, the quantum anomaly, appeared without warning at the edge of Arcadian space. At first, the Empire's sensors classified it as a natural phenomenon, a rare but understood disturbance in the fabric of space-time. Then it began to grow and evolve. In the crystalline observation chamber of the Science Directorate, Ven watched the readings with a mixture of fascination and horror. It's consuming quantum information, she reported to the emergency session of the High Council. Not destroying it, transforming it. Like the human swarm, but operating on a fundamental level of reality itself. The holographic displays showed the anomaly's progress. Where it passed, the perfect quantum states that Arcadian technology relied on were being replaced by something else. States that existed in multiple configurations simultaneously, that changed and adapted based on observation. The humans, Grand Counselor Nexus asked, his form flickering with concern. Yes, Ven confirmed, but not as an attack. This is an invitation. Admiral Chen's hologram materialized in the chamber, but this time it wasn't a simple projection. Her image existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, a visual representation of humanity's new understanding of reality. We call it the quantum evolution engine, she explained. Your civilization mastered quantum mechanics by imposing perfect order on reality. We took a different approach. We learned to surf chaos itself. The displays showed human ships entering the anomaly, their forms shifting and changing as they passed through. But instead of being destroyed, they emerged transformed, operating on principles that defied conventional physics. What have you done? Nexus demanded. We've created a space where evolution happens at the quantum level, Chen replied, where reality itself can adapt and change. Your technology seeks to control quantum states. Ours encourages them to evolve. Deep within the Europa complex, Dr. Wang monitored the engine's progress. The project had begun as a theoretical exercise. If biological evolution could produce such extraordinary results on Earth, what would happen if you applied those same principles to the quantum realm? The answer had exceeded even humanity's wildest expectations. By creating conditions where quantum states could compete and reproduce like living organisms, they had essentially created a new layer of reality, one that operated according to evolutionary principles rather than fixed physical laws. Status report, Chen requested, her quantum state hologram appearing in Wang's lab. The engine is stable and expanding at predicted rates, he reported. More importantly, it's starting to generate novel quantum states that even we didn't anticipate. It's not just evolving, it's creating new possibilities for evolution itself. Across the galaxy, the effects were becoming impossible to ignore. Species that had relied on Arcadian-style quantum technology found their systems behaving in unexpected ways. But rather than failing, they were adapting, becoming more resilient, more flexible. You're changing the fundamental nature of space itself, Ven observed, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. No, Chen corrected. We're letting space change itself. That's the lesson Earth taught us. The most successful systems aren't the ones that resist change, but the ones that incorporate it into their basic functioning. The quantum evolution engine continued to expand, not by conquering space, but by offering it new possibilities. In its wake, civilizations found their technology becoming more adaptive, more resilient. Ships could now navigate by riding quantum probability waves. Communications networks evolved to find optimal configurations automatically. In the Europa complex, Wang made another breakthrough. Admiral, he called excitedly, we're seeing emergence of quantum states that can exist in biological systems. Living organisms are starting to naturally evolve the ability to manipulate quantum fields. Chen smiled. This had been the ultimate goal, not to replace existing technology, but to create conditions where life itself could evolve beyond its current limitations. Humanity had turned our greatest challenge, surviving on a death world, into a template for the evolution of the entire galaxy. Your empire is built on the principle of imposing order, Chen addressed the Arcadian Council. Ours is built on embracing chaos and learning to thrive in it. We're not asking you to choose between them anymore. We're offering you a chance to experience both simultaneously. The quantum evolution engine had transformed the conflict between human and Arcadian approaches into a synthesis of both. In regions of space touched by the engine, ships could use both traditional quantum engineering and evolutionary quantum states. Communications could be both perfectly ordered and spontaneously adaptive. This is why you survive on your death world, Ven realized. Not because you're stronger or more advanced, but because you understand that survival itself requires both stability and change, both order and chaos. Exactly, Chen confirmed. Earth taught us that lesson through millions of years of evolution. Now we're teaching it to the universe itself. As the engine continued its expansion, a new era of galactic civilization was taking shape. The rigid hierarchies of the Arcadian Empire were being replaced by dynamic systems that could adapt to new challenges. Technology was no longer about achieving perfection, but about creating conditions where perfection could evolve naturally. Humanity had done more than survive in a hostile universe. We had shown it how to evolve. And in doing so, we had transformed the very meaning of what it meant to be advanced. The age of fixed physical laws was giving way to an era where reality itself could learn and grow. The Deathworld children had become the teachers of life itself. Evolution's champions. 10 years after the activation of the quantum evolution engine, the galaxy had become unrecognizable to its former masters. The rigid hierarchies of the Arcadian Empire had given way to a new form of civilization, one that embraced change as a fundamental constant. In the observation dome of humanity's first extrasolar colony, Admiral Sarah Chen stood with her former adversary, Science Director Ven, watching the quantum aurora that now painted the sky in impossible colors. The phenomenon was a visible manifestation of reality's new plasticity, a reminder that even the laws of physics themselves had learned to adapt. "Your latest report?" Chen asked, though she already knew what it would contain. Ven's crystalline form shifted through patterns of deep azure and gold, emotions that hadn't even existed in Arcadian culture before exposure to human influence. The emergence rate continues to accelerate. We've documented over 10,000 new forms of sentient life evolving in the quantum active zones. Some exist purely as patterns of probability. Others shift between matter and energy at will. And the Arcadian Empire. "There is no more empire," Ven replied, but without regret. "There are only evolving communities. Some maintain the old crystalline technology. Others have embraced total quantum flux, but most exist somewhere in between, just as your species predicted. In the decades since humanity had introduced evolutionary principles to quantum mechanics, the very nature of civilization had transformed. The quantum evolution engine hadn't just changed physics, it had changed the fundamental way species interacted with reality itself. Deep in the Europa complex, now expanded into a sprawling metropolis of ice tunnels and quantum probability chambers, Dr. Wang led a team of researchers from dozens of species. They weren't just studying evolution anymore, they were actively participating in it. "Show me," Chen commanded as she entered Wang's primary lab. Wang gestured to a chamber where reality itself seemed to twist and fold. "We call it the Genesis Point. It's where quantum evolution and biological evolution have become completely synchronized. Watch." Inside the chamber, matter spontaneously organized itself into complex structures, evolved through countless iterations in seconds, dissolved back into quantum probability clouds, and emerged again in new forms. It was evolution operating on every level simultaneously: physical, biological, quantum, and even conceptual. "Life finding a way," Chen murmured, quoting an ancient Earth scientist. "More than that," Wang corrected. "Life creating new ways to exist. We're seeing organisms that can evolve in response to thoughts, technologies that can reproduce through quantum entanglement, even conscious beings that exist as stable probability waves." The implications were staggering. Humanity's great gift to the galaxy hadn't been technology or military might. It had been the introduction of true adaptability. We had shown the universe itself how to evolve. In the Arcadian homeworld's crystal spires, now transformed into dynamic structures that grew and changed like living things, the former Grand Counselor, Nexus, met with representatives from 100 worlds. They weren't there to discuss politics or territory anymore. They had gathered to share their experiences of becoming something new. "The humans," Nexus addressed the assembly, "taught us that true advancement isn't about reaching a final perfect state. It's about maintaining the ability to change, to adapt, to become whatever survival requires." A holographic display showed the spread of quantum-evolved zones throughout the galaxy. But unlike the old maps of empire and territory, these zones weren't about control or dominance. They were regions where reality itself had learned to dance between order and chaos, where life could explore the full spectrum of possible existence. Back in the Europa complex, Chen received an urgent communication. A new phenomenon had been detected at the galaxy's edge, something even the quantum evolution engine hadn't predicted. "We're detecting organized patterns in the quantum foam itself," Wang reported, his excitement palpable. "It's as if the fundamental structure of space-time is developing consciousness." Chen smiled. Of course it was. They had introduced evolution to reality itself. Did they really think consciousness wouldn't eventually emerge at every level? Humanity, she addressed a gathered assembly of species, both physical and quantum, began this journey as survivors of a Deathworld. We were forged by constant challenge, shaped by the need to adapt or die. But that harsh beginning gave us something precious: the understanding that life itself is nothing but constant change. The quantum aurora above flared in response to her words, as if reality itself was acknowledging this truth. We didn't just survive our death world, she continued. We learned from it. And now we've taught those lessons to the universe itself. We've shown that true power isn't about controlling reality. It's about giving reality the freedom to grow, to change, to evolve. As if to emphasize her words, a new form of life emerged in the Genesis point, a being that existed simultaneously as matter, energy, probability, and consciousness. It was neither human nor Arcadian, neither order nor chaos, but something entirely new. Something that could only exist because humanity had shown the universe how to transcend its own limitations. This is our legacy, Chen concluded, not as conquerors or teachers, but as catalysts. We've shown the universe that life finds a way not just to survive, but to transform survival itself into an art form. The children of Earth had done more than escape their death world cradle. They had taken the harsh lessons of evolution and applied them to existence itself, transforming the very nature of reality from a fixed set of laws into a living, growing, evolving system. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, after all, was the most human outcome of all.